If you've been on the internet the last little while, you've probably seen some commentary on the upcoming Legend of Zelda movie. More specifically, concerns. Concerns about potential casting, concerns about attached names, concerns about the movie being live action. Well, today I'm going to try to explain why a lot of these concerns don't really bother me, and why I even have faith in the movie. At least for now. Back at the tail end of 2023, Nintendo announced that a live-action Legend of Zelda film was in the works. Co-produced by series creator Shigeru Miyamoto and Avi Arad, former Marvel producer. Written by Derek Connolly and directed by Wes Ball. Quite a lineup. I haven't seen much of Wes Ball's work, but from what I can tell, he seems like a really competent director who's super excited about this project. I'm very interested in his idea of giving the movie a whimsical Studio Ghibli-like feel. And Shigeru Miyamoto being so closely involved in production and financing is nothing to shrug at. Anyone who can get Illumination to make a movie that doesn't mention flatulence once has to be very strong-willed. For better or for worse, I get the strong impression that this is going to be the movie he wants. For nearly 2 years, this was practically all we knew about this movie, until about a week ago. On Nintendo's X account, Shigeru Miyamoto casually announced, without warning, as is his way, the casting for the roles of Link and Zelda. Zelda will be played by Bo Bragason, and Link will be played by Benjamin Evan Ainsworth. This news was just the thing to boost my confidence in this movie. Let me just say, in my ever so humble opinion, Bo Bragason looks how Zelda's lullaby sounds. This picture just exudes the kind of grace and elegance that is essential for Princess Zelda. I am so happy with her. Benjamin Ainsworth is also very promising. Once he's in a blonde wig and a green cap, I can totally see him as Link. I've watched quite a few interviews of his, and even in interviews where he'd be as young as 13, he comes off as shockingly eloquent and thoughtful, as well as passionate about his craft. Hearing him talk about how much research he did for the role of Pinocchio should be very encouraging for Zelda fans, and I highly recommend you look for some of these interviews if you have any concerns about his casting. I get the feeling that he is going to be very big. This casting announcement was a massive win for the Zelda movie. Before this announcement, there was a lot of anxiety about big-name actors potentially filling these two roles. Many people predicted quite confidently that Link was going to be portrayed by someone like Tom Holland or Timothée Chalamet or even Chris Pratt, although I think that one was more of a joke. If we'd had any of these actors as Link, we wouldn't have been immersed in the world. Just how we can only see Jack Black in a Minecraft movie instead of Steve, or Pedro Pascal in Fantastic Four instead of Reed Richards, Link would have only been a costume for the A-list actor to wear as he ran around Hyrule. This casting is exactly what this movie needs. Two good actors who fit their roles and yet have had very little exposure. It reminds me of what George Lucas did when he cast Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher in A New Hope. These actors are going to be synonymous with the names Link and Zelda, and I couldn't be happier. Well, that's one big concern with the movie that seems to be put to rest, at least until the rest of the cast is revealed. So what else has people concerned? One of the biggest criticisms about the movie so far is the decision to make it live action rather than animated. And yes, I can understand the concerns. Will there be terrifying uncanny CGI? Will there be an over-reliance on green screens and sound stages? Will it even feel like Hyrule? Seemingly everywhere you see commentary about the Zelda movie, there's bound to be at least one person in the comments saying it should have been an animated movie by Studio Ghibli. Now, to be perfectly clear, I am not saying, hey, they definitely made the right choice making it live action and you should stop being annoying. On the contrary, live action isn't what I thought they would go with, and I would have loved to have seen an animated movie. However, to play devil's advocate for a second, I have not been involved in the development of this movie at all. There could have been any number of behind-the-scenes factors that makes live action the ideal format. There have been a number of really good fan projects imagining what an animated Zelda movie would be like. So perhaps there was a concern that it would be too easy to compare the official movie with the fan projects. Maybe they had already pitched a Zelda movie to Studio Ghibli and it had been turned down. Maybe animation simply doesn't fit with the kind of movie that they want to make. My apologies if those sound like really lame ideas for excuses, but my point is that we don't know why they chose to make it live action. There were a lot of concerns surrounding the Mario movie before it came out, and that turned out to be a really enjoyable and faithful movie. So before we've seen any teasers or behind-the-scenes sneak peeks, let's not completely toss aside all hopes for the Zelda movie based solely on the fact that it will be live action. Now, one thing that I was actually genuinely concerned about was the attached screenwriter, Derek Connolly. His filmography at first glance seems less than stellar, with probably the most concerning project on there being The Rise of Skywalker. Just about the last thing the Zelda movie needs is a Rise of Skywalker-like script. However, after further research, I quickly learned that he only worked on the first draft of the script, and the final product apparently has no resemblance to the original. I've also heard very good things about Safety Not Guaranteed, a movie for which he has solo writing credits. So what does this tell us? Personally, I think it tells us that, once again, much less is certain about this movie than we might think. And I know that for many people, none of this information is going to make you any more sure about this movie's prospects. And at this point in time, with how little we currently know, I probably can't change that. But I will leave you with one word of attempted encouragement. If you've been following this channel, you'll know that this video is my first video in a very long while. And the reason for the delay is that I was actually directing a school musical for the first time, and it made me a lot busier than I had anticipated. I thank you all for being so patient, and I dearly apologize for my absence. That aside, there's a lot I learned from this experience about leading a creative team, developing a creative vision, and more that I'll probably have to cram into a video sometime soon. But for now, I'd like to talk about one aspect of the process that kept coming up again and again. It seems as though just about every single week, I would have to deal with someone requesting a major change to my vision. Sometimes it was someone on the costumes team, other times it was a member of the board, and the request would almost always be accompanied with some version of the phrase, "It won't work the way you have it now." Every so often, a request would end up being quite valid and I would happily make the necessary changes. But the vast majority of the time, when I'd actually investigate the claim, I'd find out that it was actually a major piece of the puzzle that they were either confused about or didn't have at all. As soon as I would explain the misunderstanding, they would instantly take a sigh of relief. They weren't dumb for making the requests. They naturally just didn't have as much information as I had. So of course they weren't going to be as sure that everything was thought out and well considered. And the final product ended up being better than any of us could have imagined. This is all to say, knowing so little about this movie, it's perfectly natural to take the few things we know for sure and use them to make massive judgments about the movie as a whole when we really can't make those judgments yet. Of course, I'm not saying that everything we're worried about is automatically going to turn out to be hunky-dory. The fact of the matter is, we know so little about this movie, but what we do know is that it has some very promising unknowns in the lead roles, a respectable director, and most importantly of all, an extremely excited Shigeru Miyamoto at the helm. Could it still be terrible? Of course. But until we know more, I wish all the luck in the world to everyone involved in this project. It's certainly no easy task to bring such a beloved franchise to life, but I have faith that you can turn this into something truly special. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully the wait for the next one won't be nearly as long. How do you feel about the Zelda movie? Are you riding the hype train? Will you be boycotting it until the day you die? Whatever your thoughts, please leave them in the comments below. If you know someone who might enjoy this video, even to hate watch it, please be sure to share it with them. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe, as I'm sure I'll be talking much more about this movie as more information becomes available. See you in the next video. Have a wonderful rest of your day.